don't want to go back to the status quo that you had before simply because it was the status quo that got us here.
China's already doing it. Neighborhoods are separated by walls. The resident to leave their district.
But look how quickly Christians included, so-called Christians included, are bowing down to the current culture. And there's not really a threat of death yet. Hey everyone, welcome to Bold Reflections. My name is Jasmine, and today we are going to be taking a look at the dark future that is coming down the pipeline. Now, as inflation continues to soar, and as our freedoms are being eroded away, such as the freedom of speech, if you dare step out of line with the mainstream narrative. And as hostility grows towards the Judeo-Christian values that not only undergird the Constitution, but also are the values that respect the sanctity of life. Therefore, we oppose the current culture that devalues such human life. The unelected global elite, who call themselves the World Economic Forum, are openly planning your future because they're just so much smarter than you guys. They're way smarter than you. Come on. They're progressives. Come on. They openly plan out. They openly execute their vision for 2030. So this is a future that is going to be imposed on us very quickly. Now, it would behoove us to make sure that we not only know what is coming down the pipeline, but also what it means for you and your family, so that you are prepared to not buy in to the shiny packaging that they're trying to sell you. And also, if you find yourself on the Christian right, like I do, you're going to find that this new world is not very friendly towards you. So we need to prayerfully consider our response to this. Without further ado, here is the promotional video released by the World Economic Forum themselves back in 2021. Let's dive right in.
The pandemic has radically changed the world as we know it, and the actions we take today as we work to recover will define our generation.
Now is the time to think what history would say about this crisis.
2020 has been challenging on a lot of levels, as economic, environmental, and societal frailties have been laid bare. But it's also proved that when we need to, we can act rapidly and restructure our lives.
The recovery from the pandemic is an opportunity. We can see rays of hope in the form of a vaccine, but there is no vaccine for the planet. Nature needs a bailout.
You don't want to go back to the status quo that you had before simply because it was the status quo that got us here.
With everything falling apart, we can reshape the world in ways we couldn't before. Ways that better address so many of the challenges we face. And that's why so many are calling for a great reset. A great reset? That sounds more like buzzword bingo.
Okay, what about those of us who are not calling for a great reset? Because who are you guys when you are literally the ones who lied about the pandemic, who created the pandemic, by the way? That whole narrative about it being from a wet market, that was a lie. It was literally the gain of function research that created this bio warfare. Our hands are not clean in this. This is so, I mean, look at the marionette. They couldn't be more obvious about their nefarious agenda. They really couldn't.
Masking some nefarious plan for world domination. Hands up, this kind of slogan hasn't gone down well. But all we really want to say is that we all have an opportunity to build a better world. And it's not surprising that people who've been disenfranchised by a broken system and pushed even further by the pandemic will suspect global leaders of conspiracy. But the world's not that simple. Every one of us has differing priorities, values, and ideas. That's part of why solutions are so hard to come by, and why we all need to be involved in the decision-making. Because whether it's politicians, CEOs, academics, activists, or you, we're all about getting people together, even those you may not like, to sit down at the table and develop solutions that work for all of us. But
we need enormous trust between the private sector and the public sector for this to actually work. That trust is hard to come by.
it's time for people
Do you want to know why? Because that relationship between public and private, that is literally fascism. That is the fascism that you so claim that you don't want in this country, but they are trying to push it on the world.
Work together, listen to each other, and build this trust so we can move towards a better world. And we really need one. Because while the pandemic affects us all, it's clear it affects some more than others.
The first people who are hit are the people at the front, those who are vulnerable. It is those on the front line who take it first, and that is simply unacceptable.
See, at the start of 2020, 1% of the world's population owned 44% of the wealth. And since the start of the pandemic, billionaires have increased theirs by more than 25%, whilst 150 million people fell back into extreme poverty. And with climate change set to dwarf the damage caused by the pandemic, the message from 2020 should be abundantly clear.
Capitalism, as we know it, is dead. This obsession that we have had with maximizing profits for shareholders alone has led to incredible inequality and a planetary emergency.
But no one can do this alone, and top-down approaches won't get us anywhere, because everything we've learned in our work has shown us that diverse voices lead to better results. And it's for these reasons that the forum talks about something called stakeholder capitalism, which would shift businesses away from just profit, because
if we want to change where the focus of our recovery will go, then we need a new dashboard for the new economy, and that needs to encompass people, planet, prosperity, and institutions.
Giving people a real stake in the economy and putting well-being before growth. And that's all about getting the right people in the right place at the right time.
We must rebuild our relationship with nature for the survival of the peoples and our planet.
We have a window of time which is closing, and we need everybody who cares to get together and find solutions now.
It's the people who have great ideas and who share them with others. They're the ones who are shaping the future. So if you want to be a part of the change, then tune in, turn on, and get involved. Follow the Davos Agenda, right here, online, on YouTube.
So doesn't that sound so lovely? Doesn't that sound so kumbaya? Oh, we know your problems. We know that the pandemic hit you so hard. But we have to just be friends and diversity. It's so beautiful. We can do this. And we know that it sounds very nefarious. They're like very self-aware that people are going to criticize this and be like, who are you guys? This is very utopian, I should say dystopian, because every dystopian novel is basically written like this, where it's packaged like this, all colorful and nice. But in reality, the end result is not so nice. Freedom is basically non-existent. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing here, that it's being packaged all kumbaya and beautiful, but it's very much not. And to help us understand some of the concern behind this, we have Glenn Beck on the program. No, I'm just kidding. But we're going to be reacting to one of his most recent specials, which are always very well done. So we're actually going to let him deep dive into his famous chalkboard things that he does, because I think it very much explains why this is not as shiny and beautiful as they're trying to make it seem. So without further ado, so let's go ahead and take a look at that video.
Of Davos, because this is exactly how the Great Reset operates. It's how it skirts the Constitution, by creating public-private partnerships, enabling a 21st century fascism. Let me show you what is happening right now. This is our story. This is how we got here, okay? All of the technological change, this is our story. But have you noticed that our story is being erased, the American story? Well, don't worry, because there's a new story coming. It's called The Great Narrative. It's their narrative of what life happened. Did you know that during the French Revolution, one of the first things they did was get rid of all the calendars? Did you know they declared that year of the revolution as year zero? Nothing happened before the revolution. They were going to rewrite everything and move forward. Okay, that's what's happening here. All the things that you thought you knew, lies. Okay, they've reimagined it. Now they're giving you the new narrative. So let me show you the plan, or their design. The elites in Davos, the governments all over the world, envision a future where big government and big corporations control everything. everything from the farmer who is involved in food production, to the guy who picks it up in his truck, to the guy who takes it to the cannery itself, to the next trucking agency to take it to your grocery store, to the grocery store, everything in food production. And I am quoting them, from seed to fork. So they control food production, food consumption. You will eat what they say is okay to eat. The products you need, you can get those, the services and the products you need. This one kills me because, wait a minute, what do you mean by the products we need? And we're a country of wants, and that's so bad. But you know who created that? Woodrow frickin' Wilson with Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays, his quote is, during the Wilson administration, the problem with this country is we're a country of needs and not a country of wants. We need advertising to make us a country of wants. Well, you got your wish. Isn't this great? Now, without talking to us at all, you're just going to shut things off. By the way, in England, the transportation industry, shipping, will be at zero by 2050. That goes into products that you need, travel, cars. You're not going to own a car. It'll be a fleet, I guarantee you. And who do I get that from? 8 years ago, from the head of, which was it, Ford, I think. The Ford Motor Company, the chairman of the board told me that. Cars aren't going to be like anything you think of in 2030. We're going to be making fleets, and you just call a car. Your energy, your air travel, you know that they're now starting to tell people which airports are going to be closed. There will only be 2 airports in Great Britain. They're ahead of us. 2. They're just eliminating the other ones, but I guarantee you they are not eliminating the private airports. Energy, services, things that you rent, your daycare. You're not going to have a say in any of this. Education, privacy, and private property. All of that is the plan.
And we can already see this with the way that the lockdowns happened. They told us that the way to stop the spread was going to be a 15-day lockdown. And then it turned into, in some places, a year, 2 years. Ridiculous. But the disruptions that were caused by the lockdowns, there were 2 sectors of the population. There was the people who were like, don't do this because this is going to have unforeseen consequences. This is going to cause shortages, and the science is not lining up with the claims. And then you had the people who basically instilled fear of death by the virus in order to manipulate people into being so fearful that they gave up their freedoms. And did we not see food shortages? Did we not see when you went to the store, you could only buy 2 packages of meat, or you could buy only 1 dozen eggs? And then the inflation that subsequently was caused by that. None of us asked for this. This was gosh, I hate to say it, but I am going to say it. It was a plandemic. It was a plandemic. Why? Because they created the virus, like I mentioned earlier. They created the lockdown, and they're talking about doing it again. This is a real thing. All right, let's continue.
Now, here's how they do it. It's control over every aspect of your life. They identify all of the roadblocks for their full takeover. Things like paper money, privately held farm and ranch land, home ownership, private business, and cheap, reliable energy. So what do? Well, the next step is they call for trillions of dollars in government-run social, economic, and welfare programs. Now, this is crazy. You remember when Bill Clinton said, the era of big government is over? He was right. The era of huge government is now here. They are forming public-private partnerships between governments and big, giant corporations to change the social norms, the things we want, the things that we believe, the things that we say or do. And they do it through DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and ESG, through energy production, consumption, food production, through the Green New Deal, and Build Back Better.
Okay. Are we not seeing that? Are we not seeing through DEI, like you said, diversity, equity, inclusion, extreme racial division, extreme division between those of us who agree that transgenderism is toxic, it's harmful to children, and those who oppose that ideology and say that if you are not transing your kids, you deserve to have them taken away from you. The social divides are becoming extreme, and it's not organic. This is coming from the top down. We're seeing it through culture, through movies, through Hollywood, where they are parroting the values that are against the dignity and sanctity of life, and those of us who still believe in Judeo-Christian values are being told that we are bigots and all of the things, and we're being censored, so we can't even get our voice out. It's happening from the top to create the social division. So not only are they creating crisis in America via food production, via, inflation and those things, and they're also bringing it from a social level. It's very concerning, but let's continue.
That's what's happening now. You think Obamacare, there is a little thing in there that I pointed out in about 2008 or 9, the complete live system where you were going to get help from medicine, when you're prime, between 16 and 40. Once you hit 40, once you hit 55, 60, you get really nothing. And before 16, if you're a baby, you get nothing. That only kicks in, this was their argument. Glenn Beck is such a conspiracy theory. That only kicks in if there's shortages. Oh, well, in America, we'll never have shortages. Except we now do. Third, this was coercion, but I want to talk to you about something that I said.
Funny thing about the word conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory is a term that I believe the CIA created in order to deflect attention away from the people who are criticizing them. So they kind of come up with this concept that anyone who's talking like this, who's pointing out the nefarious, either the nefarious consequences of the things that the government is doing or the nefarious intentions of the government. They're just conspiracy theorists. They're tinfoil hat people. It's insane. It is literally insane because it is a fake term. And it's being used right now if you, let's say, talk about the movie The Sound of Freedom. Because The Sound of Freedom points out a very, very real problem of child trafficking. The most evil thing that you can do to a child. Happening on a mass scale, and largely because of political positions that have been taken, we have an explosion of it. So for example, this open border situation with Mexico, it is flooding the market with child slaves. Oh, but that's a conspiracy theory, to the point where even my little channel here on the internet has gotten comments disabled because I brought it up. Like I said, erosion of free speech right there. But yeah, anyway, off I go on a tangent.
When we were here, Cass Sunstein, he wrote the book Nudge. Nudge was to just push you a little bit, put the French fries out of your sight. So you'd have to ask for it and think about it. Okay, that's a nudge. The next thing is shove. We're about the end of that, where they've shoved you around and silenced as many people as they possibly can. There's still more left in this, but not a lot of gas in that tank. The next one is round them up, put them in jail, or shoot them. That's just historically speaking. I'm sure it's completely different all over the world now, this time. So this is ESG, the whole cancel culture, weaponized government, and family against family. How many families are turning on each other? People, neighbors. The thing that made America truly remarkable was our kind of innocence. We trusted people, and maybe we shouldn't have, but we did. We trusted people. Nobody does that in Europe because they've had the KGB and everything like it. They've been turning people in, their neighbors in over and over again. Don't trust people.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of break down each one of the points in that particular section. ESG, if you aren't familiar, means economic social governance score, something like that. And what it is this score that's given to the corporations that are best pushing these values, such as diversity, such as climate change, blah, 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 whatever. So this is why we see things like what Bud Light did, where part of the agenda that they want to incorporate is this transgender situation. So we have the propping up of Dylan Mulvaney, and then someone like Bud Light puts him on the cover, even though the core customer base is opposed to this ideology. They don't care. They don't care because of this ESG score. And we see it happening in Target, where the core base of Target, right, is what? Suburban moms, basically. And most suburban moms are opposed to the transing of children, and yet they don't care. They are going to continue to put chest binders on their shelves. The corporations do not care about profit. And we can see this in that video that I played first, where they're like moving away from a profit-driven model. So now your dollar, they don't care about your dollar anymore. They don't care that the products that they're pushing are antithetical to the values that you, the consumer, have. They don't care. They care about that ESG score, which is a lot like what we already see in China with social credit. They have a social credit system. So this is basically the same exact thing. And then we, of course, second point there, cancel culture, which of course we've seen, that goes without explaining. If you dare say something like pro-choice is evil, because it is, because we're talking about the murder of the unborn, check out my Demi Lovato reaction video for more information of why I so strongly oppose this agenda. They cancel people over stuff like this. Then we have weaponized government. So we haven't quite gotten there yet. January 6th was kind of a little bit of a window into what is to come. You know, CIA, FBI doing covert things to intimidate political dissidents, which, by the way, Christians, don't be surprised if you're on the receiving end of that, because our values are to submit to God and not to government, but government really wants to be God. So consider that. And then family against family. This is something that we've seen not only in places like North Korea, where if you have not seen Yeonmi Park's testimony, oh my gosh. But this is something she talks about, where for generations, there is a subculture of family versus family. Like if you speak out against dear leader, you're going to get snatched up, and it could be your own mother that turns you in. Family against family. Did we not see this with the vaccine situation and the mask situation? If you were someone who was paying attention to the voices that were dissenting against the mainstream, and so therefore you personally didn't want to get the jab, then even your own family would uninvite you from places. I've heard stories about moms not being able to attend their own daughter's graduation because not getting vaccinated. Family against family. So it is a top-down, like I said, it's a top-down strategy to dissolve the social cohesion.
That's about to change in America, and it's not a good change. Finally, they begin prepping and building our new society based on the technology that most of us don't even know about. Central bank digital currency is just one of the emerging technological advances that they have big plans for. They will control what you buy. They will monitor your activity. When you get to quantum computing, once we hit a certain number of qubits, and they keep changing the number of qubits, you will not have any codes. Nothing will be secure. It's almost like in the Bible where it talks about there will be no secrets. Everything will be screamed from the rooftops. Yeah, it's coming with quantum computing. The end of death. Not because, let me give you this. I've been reading about it for about 4 years. I was just in England and I saw a show with my family called The ABBA Experience. Don't hate me, but I love ABBA, and so does every member of the family. So we went, and it's a show with ABBA, except they're not there, okay? They're holograms. And I'm a lover of technology. I love new tech. I've been watching hologram technology for quite a while. Wildly expensive and difficult and pretty good. Then I went to see the ABBA Experience. You won't find real videos deeply about this because they want you to experience it yourself. I will tell you, my daughter, who did not know they weren't real, when mom said, Cheyenne, do you think they look real? She said, what are you talking about? She said, do they look real? She said, what do you mean? She said, they're holograms. She had no idea, and it's one of the best experiences I've ever had in a concert. And my son, who is now 18, said to me, Dad, this is both thrilling and terrifying at the same time. It is the collapse of reality. It's the collapse of death. They recorded it in their 80-year-old selves, and it took them 5 months to do it. The computer de-aged them, put them in 70s clothing, put them on stage together, singing their songs based on the tracks. and you wouldn't know. All of these things, the metaverse, AI, none of this is in and of itself bad. None of this in and of itself is a conspiracy theory. In fact, we got to stop talking about conspiracy theories. It is an open conspiracy. It's just a bunch of people getting together thinking, we know what's best, let's just get it done. People are going to get in our way. For years, the World Economic Forum wrote about how they were designing our future.
So here he's going to start breaking down some of what is to come according to the Davos agenda. I encourage you to watch the entire video. It's actually an hour and 18 minutes. I'll link it in the description. He basically breaks down all of this and why it's so antithetical to freedom. Okay, so before we dive in to some of what he's going to uncover according to the Davos agenda, there is something called smart cities on this horizon. And that sounds cool, doesn't it? Where you can have all of the things that you need within a 15-minute travel. And it sounds cool. And if you haven't seen the futuristic project that I think it's like a housing project, or they're making like a mini town or something out in Saudi Arabia, you should check that out. I might have to react to that. I think it's called The Line. And this is kind of what they are doing. They're trying to create a utopian society that is tech-based and it's top-down control. So this really reads like a dystopian, honestly.
I go through this article in more detail in the book Dark Future, but I want to show you some of the highlights. Quote, welcome to the year 2030. Welcome to my city, or should I say our city, because I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or any clothing. Now, let me ask you something. When you see government-provided housing, is that the place that you think of where everybody who doesn't own anything in that takes really super great care of it? Or does it mean nothing because they have nothing in it? I'm sure they figured all that out. What the author is talking about is the WEF design for how people like you and me will live. And they're called smart cities. And the World Economic Forum is gathering a smart city alliance to make this transformation all over the world. In 2021, the WEF transitioned from the Great Reset to something called the Great Narrative. And they made the announcement in Dubai. Klaus Schwab was like this weird little bald Nazi that's giddy and happy all the time. He's like, this is fabulous. The United Arab Emirates, they're the champion of what's to come. Have you ever been to the UAE? I mean, sure, it's nice if you like 170-degree summers. But using that as the example doesn't seem like something where people love opportunity and freedom would be modeled. You always hear these people talk about democracy. Democracy. Our democracy is at stake. The UAE must be a poster child for democracy, right? Yeah, not so much. Freedom House rates the UAE officially not free. It is an authoritarian, centrally planned government. And that is exactly why the WEF loves it so much. It is the perfect launch point for their unholy alliance between big tech and government, because the people don't have any say. Dubai is probably the most centrally planned city in the world. They're incorporating advancements in artificial intelligence, in blockchain, in robotics, to design the smart city of the future. And that's great, unless it curbs opportunity for everybody. In 2020, at the World Expo, it was held in Dubai. It was the first time this had happened in an Arab country. The location of the expo remains to this day, and it has been testing ground for what you might have heard called a 15-minute city. Watch this.
The business community will enjoy a specially curated ecosystem boasting 5G and IoT technologies.
Expo City is going to be a smart city, right? So it's like a major playground for different AI-related technologies, including computer vision, natural language processing, machine learning, human-computer interaction. All these technologies can be used in a smart city scenario. So that's why a lot of highly advanced technological companies are going to be based at the Expo City to collaborate with the Expo City and contribute to the development.
Those who choose to make Expo Village their home will get to live and work in the UAE's first 15-minute city, with neighborhoods linked by pedestrian walkways and autonomous vehicle routes.
That's fantastic. Everything you need within 15 minutes. Why go any further? You know, this is kind of what Walt Disney was trying to do with Epcot when it was just an idea of an experiment.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, and we're going to take a look at... I'm going to skip ahead a little bit where he talks about, I think it's around here, how China does this already.
Starting to see what the author of that Forbes article called our city. China's already doing it. Neighborhoods are separated by walls. The resident, to leave their district, they have to have their face scanned and logged. If you're not approved, You're not leaving your little 15-minute city. Checkpoints are at every gate. If it's working there, why do you think anyone who is so crazy with power that they would deny all of this and not include you is going to open the gates? We're not going to have gates here. If you're an undesirable, maybe you've logged on line and you've even read a social media post, or you've been too close with somebody with a virus, you don't get out. Okay. There's no way any of this could happen. No way. Isn't that what we said when they said 15 days to flatten the curve? Well, they'll never. I mean, I can't imagine that. America won't put up with it, really. We taught them an incredible lesson. I contend we're already seeing this happen. And not only is hardly anyone doing anything, no one will even talk about it. Do you know a few weeks ago, there was a story about Amazon? They had the whole smart house, okay? Everything was controlled by Amazon. By the way, you don't own any of that crap. They own you. So everything's going on. Guy comes from Amazon Delivery to deliver a package. Ding dong, they have the smart doorbell. Has a camera, records everything, and can even answer. This guy had it programmed to say, hello, how can I help you? The driver, assign only the best intentions. The driver has headphones in. He thinks he hears the person speaking, which is a robot, calling him a racial slur. So he gets off the porch and goes to his truck. He calls Amazon and complains, this person at this address just called me. Amazon shuts down the person's smart house, completely cuts it off for a week. For a week. It took that long for the homeowner to get a hold of someone at Amazon and to say, if you'll look at the video, none of that stuff happened. Did you even hear that story? For all of this to make an appearance on Main Street, USA, they only need a few things.
All right, so we're going to stop it there. I really encourage you to watch the whole thing. It's super interesting and very frightening. So what does this mean for you as a Christian, if you're a Christian, or just someone who doesn't agree with the progressive narrative, the progressive agenda? You don't want these people to reinvent the world. What does this mean for you? I don't know that we can stop this. Just like we had very little control over the pandemic, over the response of the pandemic, over the inflation that's happening. I don't think we have much control over these perpetual wars that our country is fueling. And I think it's on purpose so that they can create more and more crisis here so that the masses will desperately want relief. And here we have these beautiful smart cities where we could just, provide what you need. I think that's kind of the bigger thing here. Create the crisis, offer the solution, and here we are. Kumbaya. Except it's not going to be very kumbaya. The problem with these types of things is that they don't allow dissent. So if you have people who have a problem with, let's say, again, abortion, right? This is one of the values that they hold very dear, so-called women's rights. Or if you think that the climate change panic isn't really based in fact, which it's not, by the way. And if you would listen to people who are dissenting, this is always important. Take what the media is saying and then find alternate voices. Don't just buy the narrative that they're science deniers. Perhaps the science denier is the one who is ignoring the evidence that this stuff is not true. This is the catalyst which can induce panic to get you to buy what they're selling. They often praise the Chinese model. This ESG stuff is a model of what they already do in China. If you say the wrong thing, the government knows, and you can get sent to a camp. And it's happened in the past, and it will continue to happen in the future. I think as Americans, we can be pretty optimistic and just see our way of life and how it's been for a long time and think that we're good. We don't need to pay attention. We don't need to talk about this. But I think that is naive. I don't know how Revelation is going to play out, and no one does. However, if it were to happen soon, which a lot of people say, there's a lot of evidence that the prophecies of Revelation are coming to pass. I could see it looking like this. Does this not feel like a one world system in which there will be a lot of calamity and crisis, and then someone someone rises up who the masses will be deceived by. They will call him a god. They will love this guy so much. I don't think it's going to be anybody currently in this World Economic Forum. I think whoever is to come would be a usurper of that, and they will just bow down to him. And that is the so-called Antichrist. I don't know that this is the beginning of the tribulation or whether we're in the middle of the tribulation right now. I don't know. But Revelation is clear that there's going to be some sort of one world system that will bow down to the Antichrist, and you will have to choose. Are you going to choose our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? Or are you going to deny that he is the King of Kings and bow down to the king of this world, whoever that may be? It's very easy to do when you are living in fear. If they threaten you and your family with torture and death, will you comply? And it's something that all of us as Christians need to really contend with, because it's easy to say that you will be on God's side. It's easy to say that, but look how quickly Christians included, so-called Christians included, are bowing down to the current culture. And there's not really a threat of death yet. You have Christians that call themselves pro-choice Christians. You have Christians who buy into the DEI initiatives, even though it's part of a larger nefarious agenda. Look at how quickly people were turning on each other over, like I said, the pandemic. If you didn't side with the government, you were going to kill grandma or something. That's how quickly fear controls people. The Bible is clear about what our response should be to fear. So this comes from Jeremiah 42, which was talking about the king of Babylon. Now, Babylon was a place in time, but also has come to symbolize the empires, the sinful empires of humanity. So does this not seem like it's going to become another Babylon, another sinful empire that opposes Jesus? Jeremiah 42, verse 11. Do not fear the king of Babylon, of whom you are afraid. Do not fear him, declares the Lord, for I am with you to save you and to deliver you from his hand. Notice that Jesus did not stop, or God did not stop Babylon from existing. He allows evils like this to rise, for a man to shake his fist at him so that the wheat can separate from the chaff, so that those of us who really, truly choose him will choose him even in the face of death, even in the face of torture and fear, that we will choose him instead, because that is what faith really means. America is going to change, and it is frightening. It's very frightening. You'd be a fool to not be afraid. However, this is where we can dig in the deepest. Now, in my next video, I plan on talking about the church's role in this, in our current situation, and what's to come. Are pastors sounding the alarm or bowing down? So we're gonna discuss that. We're gonna think about that. If you haven't checked out my last few videos where I talked about Sound of Freedom, I talked about Demi Lovato's pro-abortion anthem, don't miss those. Get a feel for what's going on in the world. Let's think through this prayerfully and carefully. And I really, really would appreciate if you guys hit that like button. Right now, YouTube is acting pretty crazy right now, as per usual. But even, it just surprises me that even on a smaller channel like this, they're still they're still trying. They're still trying to censor. That is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was a longer video, but I thought it was really important for you guys to hear it. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy Sunday. And as always, God bless.